In this demo, I want to show you how to use a network security group to control inbound and outbound traffic around a subnet. Here in the portal, I've already created a network security group. It's represented by this icon on the dash. I'm just going to click on that. And I want to draw your attention to the left-hand blade under Settings, where we've got inbound security rules, outbound security rules, network interfaces, and subnets. These are the four things I want to focus on during this demo. So the first thing I need to do with this network security group is associate it with some networking device or some network entity so that it knows where it's going to control the traffic. I have the option to use either network interfaces or subnets. Network interfaces, as you'll recall, are the actual connectors that put virtual machines onto the subnet. Or I could associate this network security group with the subnet and thus all the machines that are in it. That's what I'm actually going to do. So I'm going to click on subnets. And then I'm going to click over here on the Associate button. I'm going to choose a virtual network. That's the one that I set up earlier for my FTP machines in the tutorial on load balancing. And now I'm just going to go ahead and choose the subnet that those machines are in. When I click OK, it'll take just a moment, but the network security group, there you go, you can see it's now associated with this subnet. So all traffic going in and out of this subnet will be routed through the network security group rules. Okay, so now I'm ready to actually begin applying rules. So I'm going to come over here to the inbound security rules. These are the rules that are going to be applied as traffic comes into the network through the network security group. So this is for all inbound traffic. I can start adding rules. The same would be true of outbound security rules, which we'll go over in just a moment. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a rule, and I'm going to name that rule ban port 21. What this is going to do is it's going to turn off access to port 21. So I'm going to leave that with a priority of 100, and I am going to say that I want this source to be any external IP that's trying to communicate. I could do this by CIDR block, or I could do it by network tag, right here by source. So the tags that we went over in the lessons, Internet Virtual Network or Azure Load Balancer, I could do it that way. But in this case, I'm going to leave it as any traffic. I'm going to leave the service the way it is at custom, although that's going to swap over, you'll see momentarily when I actually apply the port number. I'm going to say for TCP port 21, I want this to issue a deny. And then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So before I do that, though, let's look at the rule. So I'm saying at one of the lowest priorities available, priority 100, for any inbound traffic that's communicating on port 21 TCP, I'm going to deny that traffic to this subnet. When I click on OK, it'll take just a moment for that rule to be applied. Okay, and now you can see the rule has been applied. At a priority 100, from any source to any destination within this subnet, if it's a communication on port 21 TCP, I'm going to deny that traffic. The net effect of that is going to be that anytime I try to actually connect to either of these virtual machines via FTP over the communication channel, which is port 21, I'm going to get a timeout. That's how it's going to look to the end client. And I'll show you that right now. Okay, so you should see I've switched gears. I'm now in FileZilla, the FTP client. And what I'm going to try to do is connect to my virtual machines that are in that subnet via FTP. Now, I shouldn't be able to do this. The network security group is actively filtering from all sources to all destinations any request on TCP port 21, which is the FTP communication port. It's actively refusing that traffic. So even though I've got a load balancer that is going to receive that traffic and try to send it on to a virtual machine, the network security group says, nope, for all traffic in this subnet on port 21, the FTP communications port, I want to refuse that traffic. So I should get a timeout error when I actually click the Quick Connect button here. Let's see. As you can see, it's trying to connect. Right here we can see that. It's trying to connect. And we should get a timeout here fairly soon. And there you can see. I got a timeout because 20 seconds went by and it couldn't connect to the server. It's trying again. I'm going to keep getting these timeouts because what's happened is the network security group is saying, communication on TCP port 21, you're denied. Back in the Azure portal, I'm going to go ahead and remove this rule so that I can actually reconnect. So I'm going to click on the inbound security rules. I'm going to click on that, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete the rule. It'll take this just a moment to actually delete the rule. Then I'm going to go back into FileZilla and see if I can connect to these machines after having deleted the rule. All right, back in FileZilla, let's see if we can connect to these FTP servers now that I've taken off the network security group rule that was blocking communication on port 21. Go over here and select that, and I need to enter my password. And now when I click OK, I should be able to connect to one or the other of my two FTP servers, since again, the network security group is no longer blocking traffic on port 21. And as you can see, sure enough, I did connect. Full transaction log is there, and I can see from this text file I've successfully connected to my VM1. Back in the Azure portal, now we're going to set up some outbound security rules, which are going to control traffic from within the subnet reaching out to the internet. If you recall from the tutorial on load balancer, these FTP servers that are inside this subnet are going to communicate on ports 2000 to 2009 for VM0 and 3000 to 3009 for VM1 whenever they actually make the FTP connection. So the connection to these servers will be made on the load balanced port 21, but each server is going to actually respond with data channel of its own private ports, either 2000 to 2009 or 3000 to 3009, depending on the VM. So what I'm going to do with this outbound security rule is I'm going to block those ports. So I'll click on this. I'm going to add a rule. In this case, I'm going to call it block passive for passive FTP. I'm going to leave the priority at 100. I'm going to say for any destination on the TCP ports ranging from 2000 to 3009, we are going to deny that traffic. And what that's going to do is say, regardless of the machine that has received the request, it may well get the request and it may well want to serve the file back out or accept the file coming in, but I'm going to block the traffic on the actual data ports those machines are going to use. So I'll click OK. It'll take just a moment for this rule to apply. We'll go back to FileZilla and see how it works. Back in FileZilla, we can go ahead and try to connect to our FTP servers. I'll select that. I do again need to enter my password. And what I should see in this case is the servers should again look like they're refusing the connection. And the reason for that is, yes, I am able to connect on port 21. Yes, the load balancer receives the traffic on port 21 and sends it to the relevant FTP server. But the FTP server is going to be blocked from actually responding because I've got those passive ports blocked off. So it's going to look the same to me as though I had blocked port 21, but in actuality what's happening is communication is going to be established with the FTP server, but the FTP server isn't going to be able to respond because I've got its passive ports blocked. Let's click OK and see. So yeah, you can see right here, it's trying to connect, but I'm going to get a service timeout. And again, not because port 21 is blocked, but because the load balancer has successfully routed the request to one of the virtual machines, but the virtual machine in turn can't reply on its passive ports to tell this client where to connect. So, FileZilla can't connect. Let's go back into the portal, remove that rule, and see whether or not we can connect after that. All right, we're back in the Azure portal. I just want to go ahead and delete this rule. And we'll wait for that to happen. One last time, we're going to pop into FileZilla just to see if we can connect. All right, one more time, we're in FileZilla. I'm going to connect to the FTP servers, or at least try again. Enter my password. And now, with a little bit of luck, because we've removed that rule, I should actually be able to connect to the FTP server. So, let's go ahead and push OK and see what happens. As you can see, I've successfully connected right here to my VM1. So, recapping, I was able to make this connection right here because while port 21 was always able to forward the traffic, my VM1, which is operating on passive ports 3000 to 3009, was having its traffic blocked by the network security group. By removing that block, my VM1 was able to respond in turn to FileZilla That's it for this demo. When you're ready, let's wrap up and move on to the next lesson.